Welcome to the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast with global sales trainer and professional speaker Lois Koffi. Each week, it is her goal to share inspiration and education for you to have the best health and wealth and wisdom for your life.
Well, all right, everyone. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for your patience. We are having some technical difficulties. Thank you to Mercury retrograde, I have no doubt. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Coach Lois. I'm your host of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. And I know this is a holiday in America. This is not a normal day for me to do a podcast. So you're probably like thinking, Lois, why are you doing a podcast on Memorial Day and on a holiday? And I wanted to interview my amazing, beautiful partner, my beautiful husband. And this just seemed like the right day to do what we're calling our coming out announcement of my husband's amazing gifts as a ghost whisperer. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different stuff today. So I just want to remind you guys, if you are tuning in live, go ahead and comment below #live and where you are tuning in from. And hello, Gail. Good morning. We have Gail Craft tuning in on LinkedIn. Yay. So good to see you, Gail. Gail's going to be on my podcast in not too long a time. If you want to play along, everyone, again, this is Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. I'm Coach Lois. Comment below #live and where you're tuning in from, or #replay and where you're tuning in from. So if you don't know, I'm a sales trainer, a podcaster, just past 200 episodes. And this podcast was inspired by my journey in 2020. And I called it Healthy and Wealthy and Wise because I love that phrase, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? And I really didn't know at the time, but it was meant to actually inspire a lot of conversations over the next 2 years about living your best life, living your best health, living your best wealth, and living your best truth, also known as wisdom. Well, today, my husband and I are going to talk about our journey, especially over the last 2 years. I'm going to share a little bit of the story, that I'm going to turn it over to my amazing husband, Didier Koffi. And we got married it was 14 years ago, actually, this coming month that we met. And we got married 5 months later. We started a family, and we were both kind of rolling stones. He's lived on 3 continents. I've lived in 4 different states, and I've always had this dream of freedom, living my best life and traveling and all of the things. Well, my husband, he can share more of his story. When he came to America, he, like a lot of people, including myself, was always looking to create the American dream, that beautiful 2.2 kids, the white picket fence, the house, the cars, all of the things, right? And sure enough, really quickly, we just got bogged down by life. We got bogged down big time. And it was really hard. Those first 13 years, it was really, really challenging to find our truth inside of our marriage and find our truth inside of our careers. So really quickly, a lot of you know my story, but I'll just reiterate, a couple of years ago, we moved here to California, and we thought by moving to a new state, our lives were going to be better, different, all of the things, right? But guess what? You move to a new state, but wherever you go, there you are. So I was hoping that our marriage would improve, our life would improve, all of these things. And it didn't. It did in some ways, but mostly we were really avoiding going within and really asking ourselves some deep questions, like, why are we here? Why are we married? What is our purpose? What is our truth? And nobody really had taught us how to do that until 18 months ago. I had a spiritual mentor named Franco, and he was on my podcast twice. And he said, Lois, you got to go in. You got to look within for healing. You got to look within for your purpose. And I had been meditating for quite some time. And I was like, how do you do this? And so I really, I guess, hit proverbial rock bottom about a little over a year ago. So I was making lots of money, living here in beautiful Southern California, but I still felt dead inside. And part of it was I really, really was thinking, oh my gosh, I don't think my marriage is going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to get a divorce or what's going to happen this year. And I recognized that my husband was a mirror to me. We were mirrors to each other with very similar wounds, very similar traumas. And we both had a lot of independent work that we needed to do. And it turns out, lo and behold, part of that journey brought my husband to being and becoming a ghost whisperer and someone who's channeling Michelangelo, making these amazing paintings of these spirits who crossed over and a lot of other things. And so, Didier, I'd love for you to share, where were you at like a year ago, 2 years ago, and more about your own life journey that led you to be and become who you are today.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, honey. Oh, thanks, Lois. As I used to call her, Lois, honey. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for people joining us today. So yes, as Lois just said, as you can imagine, it was a rocky journey. Coming to the United States, to give you a very quick, maybe a 1-minute briefing of my past life before the United States. So I was born in a country called the Ivory Coast, or Côte d'Ivoire. That's used to be a French colony, hence the French elements in the name, and my own name, Didier, is a French name. So I was born there, but at a very young age, around 3 or so, or 4, I moved to France with my parents, and I spent about 10 years or so over there in the suburbs of Paris. So I grew up in France in a very multicultural environment. For people who haven't been to the Paris area, you'll notice that Paris is a melting pot. Then after 10 years or so, when I was around 14 to 15, my family moved back to the Ivory Coast, that country in West Africa, where I spent another 10 years. And I came to the United States in 1995. So it's been 27 or so years now that I'm here. I became a U.S. citizen and everything. But I met Lois, as she said, 14 years ago, at the time in my life where I had actually ended a first marriage that lasted for 8 years. I'm not going to go into that, but it was a rocky, very difficult marriage with somebody from back home, from my country of origin. Even not only that, they were from the same tribe. So we are, in Africa and African countries, tribes are very important, and tribes have a specific language and specific cultures. Well, I married somebody from my own tribe, and that didn't work out after 8 years of being together. So I divorced back in around the year 2005, and then I met Lois in the year 2008. So our beginnings, as she said, we had the romance and everything as you normally do when you meet, your sweetheart. But then life, as she said, hit us really quickly. And we met in Southern California, in San Diego County and Southern Orange County. And then we moved to Minnesota within a year or so of being together to Minneapolis. So we have a community of friends and in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities area, as well as the Midwest. So imagine also that for me, who came from such a very different kind of background, moving to the Midwest was a cultural shock. So there's that element of, living in an area which I kind of gotten familiar to being in California, and then going and really starting my marriage and my family with Lois in a completely new area was one element that kind of added to some of the, the stressors that she mentioned. But there was a lot more than just that. These are kind of some of the superficial, it's still important, but I would say more superficial elements. Deeper inside, there was a lot more that my life, at least, had accumulated through the years. And as well as being a Black man in America, as you guys know, it's never an easy enterprise. So there was a lot of things that I was dealing with that possibly we're going to go through throughout the podcast. But that kind of gave you a quick overview of, where I came from and, why I'm here now with Lois back in Southern California where we met 14 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And we always knew that we both had a spiritual connection. We were really deeply connected that way. And I think that's what kept us going. Thankfully, there was divine guidance along the way.
Yes.
Otherwise, I don't know, where we'd be today. But talk about, I know what I did, and my audience has heard a lot of my journey of going within. It's transformed my business. It's transformed our marriage. It's transformed our lives. And it was also very painful, right? For us to be both in this space of, oh my gosh, you lost your dad. I lost both my parents and my brother. You really starting to have things happen in the middle of the night all the time during the pandemic. And I'm going to let you explain what that is. But wouldn't you say that was kind of like your proverbial wake-up call to realizing something's not right here? I got to listen to what's happening inside of me, and I can't push it away anymore. Because we had been married and had different ghost hauntings in our home, and we've actually had to move once out of a house because the ghosts wouldn't leave, even when we brought in the Ghostbusters, right? So maybe that's a good place to start back when you started having those experiences, and that led us to the pandemic.
Yes, absolutely. So when we moved to Minnesota, I think the second home that we moved into was a very beautiful home next to a lake called Lake Harriet. So people from the Twin Cities area know that. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And we got into this old home that probably was built sometime, I would say at the beginning of the 1900s or so. And shortly after we moved in, so back then we only had, Lois and I only had Henry. So our daughter Desiree was not born yet, but Henry was about 2 years old, or was about to turn 2 or so. So very young, very young. Henry was very young. And the way the house was built, Henry's den, he had a den, was right next to our bedroom. And within about 2 weeks of moving in, I would hear Henry. Usually when we put him to bed, he will go to sleep pretty quickly. I'll hear him giggle and laugh and bounce in his crib. And I was like, oh, wow, he's got a lot of energy going on here. He doesn't want to go to sleep. And that kept going on night after night after night. So I started thinking, okay, maybe something is going on in the house that just keeps him up. Well, surely enough, yes, something very interesting was going on, because when they were done playing with Henry, and then when I say they, I'm talking about, yes, ghosts, children. 2 children, ghosts, were somehow living with us and playing with Henry. And, when the child is very young, you haven't built all those filters and all kinds of pre-programming that tells you, oh, ghosts are not real, it's just imagination and things like that. You are a very open channel. So Henry was seeing them and playing with them. And how I noticed that is when I started falling asleep, I will start hearing the other voices in Henry's room beside his own. So I was really disturbed by that. I'm like, it seems like there are other kids playing with him. And when Henry will fall asleep, the kids will move in. I will hear their steps coming into our bedroom, and they will push me because they wanted to play with someone else. And somehow they probably felt that I could be aware of their presence. Lois was oblivious to all of this. She goes to sleep. But I was like, who's poking me? And it's not the side where Lois is on, it's the other side. And I look around, I don't see anybody. I'm like, okay, it must be again my imagination. And I try to fall asleep, and boom, they keep poking me like that. So after several nights, actually, a couple of weeks of that going on, I told Lois, okay, I believe that the house is haunted. There are other spirits in this place. And we called for help. We found somebody who was into that space of, talking to spirits and stuff. We invited her to our house, and she did her ceremony. And she's the one who revealed that not only there were the 2 children, there was also a woman, the mother of the 2 kids, who was haunting the place. So we were living in a haunted house, and she tried to help us clear the house. But Lois and I were like, first chance we get out of here. We were not ready to be surrounded by ghosts or deal with ghosts. And myself too, I'm like, I want my sleep. I want to be able to rest, go to work, and do all my things. So we got out of that house. That was kind of the first really clear experience of contact with the other side that we experienced as a family, all three of us, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. So going after that into the pandemic. So think about this. This was Henry was 2. Now Henry is 13. So when the pandemic started, it was around 11. So we'll go back about 8 to 9 years in the future, and I had completely repressed. I mean, I would joke with friends and family, tell them, "Yeah, I lived in a haunted house," and we will tell that story to people who, just so that they knew that we actually experienced, hauntings. But it's nothing that I either thought I would be involved with or have any kind of further communication with. Well, the pandemic happened. A lot of people died, including family members. So I had lost my dad, not from the pandemic, but a few years before. And then 6 months later, I think, Lois, you lost your dad too. And then we got into the pandemic around the beginning of 2020. And then you lost your brother, and then you lost your mother. But when Lois's brother died, I saw him. So that was if you want, my second vivid interaction with a ghost that I knew somehow. So that was Lois's brother, who died unfortunately alone in his home, and nobody knew about it for several days. But I do believe that maybe a couple of days after his death, as I was sleeping at night, and I opened my eyes in the middle of the night, and I felt his presence, and I actually saw him standing there, just looking at me, and he looked very different, like I knew something was wrong with him, but I never could imagine. We were going to be turning 50 at that year. Both he and I, we're born the same year. So I never thought that we would lose him so soon. So I never really made a connection that it was actually his ghost that was there. I thought, maybe it's just an image that I have in my head of him. Maybe I'm worrying about him for some reason. And I never took it further until a couple of days later, we got the news that actually he had died. So that triggered another thing within me about, okay, what's that deal with me and those spirits who are dead, who actually reach out to me when I am in a state that kind of opens up that communication. There were a few other instances during the pandemic, of course. If you can imagine the number of people who died during the pandemic, that was a lot. And they started showing up around me, and I could hear them. I could hear their voices at night, in the middle of the night. I could hear their pain, their suffering. And it started disturbing my life entirely. At which point I had to tell Lois, something is going on with me here that's really impacting my entire life. And I told her, I do believe that somehow ghosts are coming to me and we need to do something about it. But at that time, we didn't know anything on how to deal with it, where to begin. And, I'll give it back to you, Lois, as to which areas you want us to go into after that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing, such a vulnerable story. And if you're just joining us, guys, we'd love for you to comment below and play along. We do love to acknowledge our live guests. First of all, I do want to acknowledge your sister, my beautiful sister-in-law in Ottawa, Canada. Corinne Atiogbe is here. So good to see you. Thank you for supporting us. And if you guys want to comment, you can also throw in questions. We are going to go for a full hour today because of the nature of the story, the conversation. And if you see value, please hit the share button with your community. And of course, you can ask questions along the way, and I'll put the questions in there at the right time, Didier, so you don't have to worry about answering them if you see them. Okay. But I just want to remind you guys, why would I be interviewing my husband, talking about ghosts, all of the things, right, on this podcast? Because, most of my clients and audience and tribe are, people who sell and have their own businesses, coaches, speakers, authors, fellow podcasters, holistic healers, right? However, the main core value that Didier and I now also, want to share with people is how do you speak your truth authentically? How do you find your truth? How do you live your best life and tap into your higher self? So Didier obviously had some kind of a gift, and he kept it to himself for a really long time. And this is where I was starting to think, I don't know what's going on. He's not the same man I married. Are we gonna make it? I had all this judgment because I didn't know. I didn't know, and he didn't know how to come forward. So it was at the end of 2020. We were on a trip when you shared you had another experience with ghosts who, you know, came to seek you and right by the ocean, and you didn't know how to really protect yourself. And it was at that point, and you don't have to tell that story unless you want to, but it was at that point where I said, we got to get help. We got to get help. So we turned to one of our friends in San Clemente, California, Cheryl Silverstein. Whoop, whoop. Give Cheryl a big shout out. And we also turned to another friend, a shamanic, connected to African, you know, African Sangomas in South Africa. And we said, guys, we have this going on. What do we do? And that's maybe where you want to pick back up and talk about your, you know, African origins and what you know about your family, but then also your time with Yeye.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. So we were already at a crossroad where to kind of put things in perspective, that incident that happened in San Clemente by the ocean was so traumatic. I felt like I almost died. It could have very well been that I would have died that night because of the intensity of the interaction that happened. So being shaken so much myself, Lois, I took, you know, I followed the advice of our friends, and I reached out to a very, very amazing person, a beautiful inside and out woman from Africa. Her full name is Yeye Gogo Nana. She has a website, and she was featured actually on a documentary called Crazy Wise that's on Prime Video. So if somebody is very curious about who started helping me finding my path and my truth, you could watch that Crazy Wise, like crazy and wise in one word. Crazy Wise. It's a documentary on Prime Video that talks about some of those very interesting things that happen to people that are a little bit, out of this world. And near the end of the documentary, there is about a 5 to 7 minute section that talks about this woman, Yeye Gogo Nana. So she's from a priesthood tradition called the Sangomas. So there are men and women who are Sangomas. And it's really focused from South Africa, but they have a presence in many areas, including West Africa, which is where the country of the Ivory Coast that I'm from. One of them, I got actually two other African countries in my lineage. One of them is called Togo, Togo, and the other one is called Burkina Faso. So I have 3 African countries in my heritage. So when I talk to I'm going to call her Yeye. No, her name is long, but I'm just going to use Yeye as the name to refer to her. When I talk to Yeye, so being a very intuitive and also a healer, and also having a very good understanding of African traditions and cultures, she did her whatever she does. We were on a Zoom call. It was during the pandemic, so I couldn't be there. She's in New York City. I was here in San Diego, so we had a Zoom session for about almost 2 hours. And she did what she does to understand what was going on within me. And she said, well, Didier, you should have heard this from your family members, but within your family, because I do have also royal connections within those 3 countries. Actually, 2 of them tie me back to families that are considered royalty in those countries. And she said, well, when you have that kind of bloodline, you're bound to have extrasensory things that people call supernatural. That's one of the reasons why people of your bloodline became either chiefs or kings or queens in those places, because they actually had these additional abilities that helped them become better leaders and be able to actually help a great number of people and becoming leaders within their communities. And she said, it's in your blood. You cannot change your blood. It's within you. It was bound to happen sooner or later. So I was really struck by her affirmations. And I'm going to give you a side note. I'll tell quickly a little bit more about what she told me about myself. But one of the things that I did very shortly after talking to her was actually digging into my family history. And I found this book. It's called An African Family Archive. And if you read down there, it's the Larson of Little Popo Anano Togo. So this is my father's family. So I was telling you that I have 3 African countries within me. So that's on my father's side, on his father's, my grandfather. And there is this book, a big book that about close to, I think I see in here 400 to 500 pages, that was written by two German historians about the history of my family on my grandfather's side. They made a book out of it. And it's one of those very rare written account of what happened in that part of the world within the year 1841 to 1938. So you're looking at about a century of historical events recorded by members of my family. So they were very literate. They were able to write letters, most of them in English, that are all captured in this book, a whole bunch of them, talking about what life was like in that time, in that part of the world, and how they were communicating with some of the colonists. Some of them were Germans, some of them were from the Netherlands, some of them were from England, and some of them were from the United Kingdom. So a lot of interaction with, and of course, they talk about some of the more esoteric aspects of my family, where they were actually healers, but at the same time also leaders of great communities. That's the reason why a book was written about them. So I would never have taken the time to figure that out. And nobody in my family actually told me the whole thing. My father having died 4 years ago, I really didn't have somebody to go directly to and ask questions about this. I had to kind of do my little research to find out that, goodness gracious, there is this entire ancestry behind me, and it's manifesting now at this point in my life. How do I integrate this truth that I carry in my blood? It's not like you can change your blood. It's within my DNA. So it was a very high call, wake-up call for me to, okay, how do I connect deeply to this? And how do I live my life that I have with my wife and my children and my professional circles? Because I didn't tell you guys, but a quick note about this. I studied engineering at a very high level to all the way to the PhD. I didn't get my PhD because the industry pulled me out of there soon enough to make a lot of money in engineering and IT. So that's been my professional career. I've been working for big government agencies, left and right. I did consulting for very, very big corporations too. So that was my life from a professional standpoint. I'm a techie guy. I'm a scientist on one side because I did studies at a very high level, but I'm also a very accomplished professional because I've done a lot of consulting work for major corporations and government agencies in the United States. I'm like, how does all of that matches with a story as big as this that I'm carrying today? So this was the conundrum that I was facing about a year and 3 or 4 months ago, and which I told Lois, I'm like, how are we gonna go through this? No, so back to Yeye, she gave me some very interesting directions, and she said, at this point in my life, I'm about to do a transformation, and that's the reason why it's become so intense for me that I'm perceiving those things around myself. She said, it's because I've shut it down way too long. It's actually, she said those words, it's killing me to hide it, to keep it inside. I will not survive if I do not address this properly. And I have to really take time to understand that side of me if I even want to be able to survive. So that was a pretty strong call when I shared the news with Lois. And that put us again on a few different paths going forward. So I'll let Lois guide you a little bit more to where we want to take our audience after that point.
Well, I love that you mentioned the Crazy Wise documentary. That's what I have on the screen right now. So if you guys want to check that out, it's very deep. I come from, ancestral lines where there was quote unquote mental illness, quote unquote schizophrenia, quote unquote addiction, alcoholism, all of these things. And I was starting to understand myself through this process, through my husband's, journey of how a lot of times as a society, we're put into this box, right? You have this American dream box, and I think it's all over the globe. And you don't study your ancestors. You don't know about all of the generational traumas and things. And I feel like a lot of them have to do with not listening to your voice within, not trusting and finding your higher self. And so a lot of people get these diagnoses. Collectively, Didier and I have had 10 friends commit suicide also. And I totally get it, because we're really not taught how to live out loud and be our true self. You know, you have a 40-hour week or 50 or 60-hour week job, and then you have these other things happening, and you have a family. So I felt so much compassion for my husband after I saw this. And then through that process, we got more help. And just for time's sake, maybe talk about, you know, how you started to learn how to manage this gift, but then also another gift came as a result of you starting to go within and learn more about what you were all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you a quick timeline, we were talking about February of last year. That's when I had my conversation with Ye. So we're barely 1 year and a few months since then. She asked me, she said, "Hey Didier, don't be scared also so much, right, about what I just told you, because guess what? Within your culture and your family history, you have guidance from people who passed away." She says, "Our departed ones, you know, depending on your belief system, they'll say they'll be in heaven, or they'll be in an afterlife, to sometimes they may be reincarnated. But it is common knowledge within some of my cultural, at least background, that the ancestors never leave us. They're still here." And she said, "Take time to talk to them. Talk to your father. Talk to your grandparents, you know, and their parents. You can actually talk to them, and you will receive from the great beyond some guidance about how to move forward, because you are the fruit of their lives. Myself and my sisters, at least on my side of the family, we are the fruits of our ancestors. So they will be there to help you if you really reach out to them." And that's what I did. So I reached out to somebody who was really good in ancestry communication, because I hadn't built yet. So Cheryl, that Silverstein that Lois mentioned, is one of them. And there was another friend, I can't remember her name. She deals with ancestry healing and communication. And these ladies started guiding me on a weekly basis, sometimes over 2 weeks or so, how do I communicate with my ancestors. So I started addressing them and comfort, saying that, hey, you're going to be okay. You know, this is a great gift that is coming into your life. And as part of that awakening of myself, my connection to my ancestry line, I also got another gift, which was the painting thing, which is part of one of the elements of our podcast, is this channeled painting, as a way to help me navigate the energies involved in building that muscle. This is a new muscle that you're building. Communicating with entities that are not necessarily of this physical world takes some training. They said, well, we're going to give you something that can help you do that. And that was the painting. So I started, which I'd never been to any art school in my life. As I said, I was trained as a scientist and an engineer. I never went to art school, right? My entire life. I never really did any kind of artistic creation, you know, painting, sculpting, none of that. And all of a sudden, there are a few elements that also facilitated that, but this whole thing worked so beautifully together. I had this impulse to start painting, and I started painting. And as I kept painting, I started with landscapes. Then I started painting a few animals. And then I started painting people, human beings. And I became more and more at ease with that side of me, which was completely ignored until then, which also facilitated my opening to, you know, dealing with things like communication with the departed. Starting, of course, with my own family members. That was makes it easier. A lot of time, it's easier to talk to somebody you know than someone you've never met before. So the painting came as a channel for me to build that muscle, to nurture that connection. And some pretty interesting paintings came out of it. I mean, I could share some of them with the audience if that's the time, Lois, you tell me, or if you wanted to cover that later, we can do it later. But these are very important things that happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned that. I did put the website. In the comments for those that I can share on YouTube and my fan page and stuff. So there's also, if you want to go take a look, but I think it's a great idea to go ahead and share any of the physical paintings that you have on your side. And then we do have a question from the audience. So I want to get to Sean's question after you show some paintings.
So as I told you, I started with landscapes. So I did ocean landscapes like this one. Yep. So that's a moon over the ocean. And again, as I said, never done painting before in my life. Okay. I've done animals. So this is a buffalo. I did this one for my daughter because she wanted a buffalo painting. So I did a little buffalo like this. So these are more natural things. As far as people, let's start with an easy one. There's a Marilyn Monroe here. Painting, right? So again, no art school, no training. I have Jesus painting.
And hold on. You have to tell the story. Can you tell them that Marilyn came to you? I think you should tell them about the fact that you're not just painting these randomly.
Yes. So the Marilyn Monroe painting. So we went to an island called Catalina, so which is right off the coast of Los Angeles, Southern California. So a really nice island. About an hour and a half on a ferry boat will take you to the island of Catalina. So the island of Catalina used to be one of the places where Marilyn Monroe lived. So before she became a big star in Hollywood, she was married to a Navy guy, and they lived on the island of Catalina. So Lois and I visited that island, and surely enough, we were maybe, 20 yards away from the house where she lived. That's the hotel we stayed at, not even knowing that we were that close to her home. But we knew that she had lived in that island, and I was curious about, figuring out where she lived. But to get to the ghost whispering aspect, she visited me that night, or spirit, if you want to call it, or I don't think it was a ghost, possibly a spirit, visited me that when we were on Catalina, spending that night there, and then it inspired me to make that portrait of her. So that's where that portrait came from. It was that encounter with a spirit, or if you want, the energy or ghost of Marilyn Monroe herself. So that's that. Jesus painting that I did. You may have seen this on Facebook. I've shared that on Facebook. It's a painting of Jesus. So my connection with Jesus as a great Lord, as a divine master. When we say the Spirit of Christ is that big, I understand it so much more now than I ever did in my entire life. And I was raised Catholic. I can tell you that my connection to Christ today and his true profound message is so much stronger within me today as it has ever been. And that was also facilitated through that spiritual work that I've been doing recently. So I don't just stop to Christianity. As far as Africa is concerned, this is an Egyptian goddess of the name of Isis. So she is a great priestess from back thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago in Egypt. And there is some very profound, for anybody who takes time to study the story of Isis and her cultural and mystical impact on all religions, you will be surprised how much of what she brought to the world exists today through so many different religions around the world. So I captured her also as a painting. And for our friends from India,
Mm.
this is my connection to the goddess Kalima, which some people, yeah, Jai Ma Kali. Some people think of her as a scary one, but she's not. I would see for Indian culture, the goddess Kalima, very close to what some of the dark Madonna, for example, will be referenced in Christianity. She is a very loving, caring deity within the Hindu culture, and I also was, if you want, called to make a painting of her. That was my rendition of it, right? That was just me connecting to the goddess Kalima. So these are just a few examples. Excuse me. As of today, I think I've done 42 paintings about the size of what you've seen, and 2 of them are like mega size, very very big paintings. And one of them is of my beloved wife, Lois. So she gets to have her almost like a Mona Lois instead of a Mona Lisa. She has a Mona Lois. It's a really beautiful painting. I'm not going to share it here because for other reasons, but it's a beautiful painting that I did of my beautiful wife. And I have another big one also that I did of other deities in Tibetan traditions that I've discovered have so much wisdom to share with the world. If you don't even believe into their deities, but the wisdom of their philosophies is so profound when it comes to how humans relate to each other and can learn to honor themselves and honor others with as little judgment as possible. And it's a beautiful thing to experience nowadays with all the polarization that exists in our world. I'm passing you back.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think there's a little bit of a delay between us, so I did not mean to speak over you, my love. So I want to mention a couple of things. I want to get to some questions, though. So just really to reiterate what he's talking about with painting these different beings, it's been very healing for him, but it's also been healing for other people. So like we both had a religion church wound. We both had family wounds. And so as he was painting Jesus and even Mother Mary, like I have come alive in my own spiritual path. Again, we honor all religions, all beliefs, our atheist friends. We love everyone, just so we're clear. I don't usually talk about religion on my podcast, but this is just an important thing to remember as you honor your truth and you share your truth, you help others, inspire others to do the same. So that's why I wanted to share that. And for both of us, you know, he's started painting different beings who in our family line, including my brother who passed away and including my mother. And as he was painting her the week of Mother's Day, actually, no, it was the week of the anniversary of her death, I found myself in a space of healing. Like I cried. I went through some more shadow work, what we haven't really talked about, and calling that deep wound unpacking and finding your truth is also known as shadow work, right? A lot of times we want to fake it till we make it and not face the shadow because we think that's bad. However, Didier and I have both seen once you put a light on those shadows and those wounds and love yourself through them, that's where the true healing and ascension process can begin. So we will be talking about, before we wrap it up, I want to get to the questions now, Didier. But yep. we want to let you guys know that my husband is also doing weekly Ghost Whisperer ceremonies, and where he's had lost souls who haven't passed on to the light. He helps bring them to the light, and they also channel through him, and he has countless sketches of all of these people. So I just want to make sure you stay till the end, so you got to hear more about that. But do you want to say anything more about when you were painting my mom? She came to you, right? Wanting you to paint her, and then we'll go to the questions after you share a little bit about that.
Yes, it was very interesting because, I mean, we have a few pictures of your mom in the house that we just family members, of course, get their pictures in your home. But when we got closer to the time of the of Mother's Day timeline, I had a very strong. Actually, it was in a dream where she came to me and she said, "It's time for you to do a painting of me," which I was like, "Okay, this is interesting." So I just did. So I said, "Okay, how do you want me?" When it happens, I have no problems now. Just talking to them. I'm like, okay, I know I'm here on 3D Earth. You're possibly in a different realm of existence, but please guide me. How do you want me to represent you? And immediately I was guided towards a particular picture of her that we had in the house. And she says, at this time in my life, this particular year of my existence that was captured in this picture, that's what I want. So that's the direction that I took. And I think I within 2 days, even less than that, 2 days, the painting was done because she was right there. She's like, now it's the time. You have to do this. And as soon as I did the painting and I presented it to Lois, it unlocked a lot of the transformation that she kind of started mentioning about her own healing journey and her connection to her mother was triggered by this painting. And I loved it because I was like, yep, that's the reason why she came to me at that moment, because she knew that this channeling could be an instrument of healing and bringing peace and closure to a lot of people at different points in their lives. So that was a very, very clear example of that.
Yeah. And thank you. It was so powerful for me to heal that mother wound and to really accept and embrace my femininity as well. So it did way more than we could have ever anticipated. So we will be helping together as a couple. We want to be helping couples with honoring those wounds, working with them, and working with your spouse as you go through that process. So more to come on that. Just want to give a quick shout out to Bhakti in Minneapolis. Bhakti Ashaya, our great ascension beyond meditation. It's way, way more than you're just closing your eyes and trying to quiet your mind. And then Gail was talking about her spirit goddess. I think she was talking about Kali or Isis at that time. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to go back to Sean. Sean had a question. If I can find it now, there's been so many wonderful. Here we go. Have you ever considered not embracing your transformation, but acknowledging it, but still doing the professional path were on? Do you want to speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it's all about integration. So I'm doing both. So the spiritual work that I've started discovering a little bit more than a year ago is an integral part of who I am. And also the professional education and services that I know I have been able to provide for 27 years or so are still part of my life. So the trick here is, where is the balance? As usual, it's all about finding the balance. And it's a beautiful thing. Searching and finding that balance has brought to me more peace, clarity for myself, authenticity for myself, presence for my wife and my children than I have ever been able to do, because I understand that all these things are part of me. There is no competition at this point. When you embrace the truth that you are in all of its dimensions, I am still the same scientist I used to be, and the same technology consultant. I'm working on projects with, I can't say because I'm not allowed to talk about those things. I'm still very involved in some very major things professionally from a technology and science standpoint. But at the same time, I have these beautiful elements now in my life that is no longer bringing tension and friction and repression within me. It's nurturing my being. It's bringing energy. It's bringing clarity. It's bringing inspiration to so many elements, aspects of my life, including my family life with my beloved wife, Lois, here, and our children. We found ourselves having conversations with our children that we didn't have back in the days. We give them now, because now we understand how important it is for somebody to really find the truth. We do that for our kids. So we have to let our children express their truth. And we give them, an environment, opportunities throughout the day to express themselves, to share their dreams, their fears, their concerns, their plans. All of this happens in such a more fluid way now, because for myself, I've been able to integrate all the aspects, elements of who I am. And I know there's more to discover. The journey is not over. God only knows what else he's on my path of, until the day I'm done with this life here. But I've understood that now as a very profound lesson, to really integrate all aspects of me and respect people around me too. I don't bother my coworkers with anything that has to do with the spirit world. It's not their concern. Some of my friends, for sure, because they're friends, they need to know what happens with me. But it's very important to me to honor everybody else's space. And I can do that also with more ease now. I can be with people who don't believe in any of that, and I still love them as much. And I still have a beer with them if we need to, or go out and have fun on the track somewhere, So it's that authenticity, because I'm more at peace with myself. I find myself being more at peace with letting others people be who they are. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I want to quickly speak to that. And then Elizabeth, we're going to get to your question next. So hopefully, Sean, that answered your question. He's still navigating the both and-ness of it. And we know some people really struggle with having a quote unquote side hustle as a spiritual healer, teacher, artist, all of that. And so we're working and still navigating some of those pieces and parts. We'll tell you at the end how you can purchase art from Didier, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he still has a full-time, professional career. In the meantime, because he focused on healing his wounds, I focused on my own shadows and work, and we honored each other. It was not easy to do that, by the way, at first. There was a lot of times I compared myself. I felt less than. I felt like I was a third wheel. I was competing now with his career and now his new passion. So I went through my own hell. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. And there's still days where I'm still working on all of the peeling back of the layers of the onion. But when you don't deny your truth and you start pursuing it, even if it seems crazy, which is why we mentioned the Crazy Wise documentary, right? Because you might feel like you're a few fries short of a Happy Meal when you're going into space, right? You're like, what the hell is going on with me? But with the right help, and that's what Didier and I want to provide for people in the future, with that right assistance, oh my gosh, abundance, everything. The world is your oyster because you are shining your light. You are living your ultimate truth. It's just, you're gonna have to go deep, and that's scary. And that's why we wanted to share our message today more than anything, is to shine our light as we move forward as a together, even more aligned than ever as a couple. Because I feel like a lot of people feel alone and separate because they don't fully understand their gifts and don't necessarily want to do the hard work. But we're here to tell you it is so flippin' worth it, guys. Yeah. So Elizabeth asked, how do you feel when you have these artistic spirit visions? She's found some profound experiences when she feels ancient archetypes herself. So can you, what do you feel? What do you sense, see, smell, anything you want to share?
Yes. It's a very beautiful experience. So I had to establish some rule of engagement. That's another beautiful thing that I discovered. You can control, I've learned to control my amount of interaction, the duration, when I'm channeling and connecting to that kind of higher level inspiration. So it usually comes as an image that comes into my mind. So usually it's during a space that I've allowed for that to happen, because, as I said, many elements in my life needs to be integrated. So there is a time that I allow myself, and it was not easy to get to that balance. Lois will tell you that, where we had times for each thing. So I have a space within my day and within our home where this takes place. So when I'm doing an artwork like that, usually either it could have had a dream, for example, where the particular entity or deity or concept of within humanity comes to me, and then it takes more shape over time, like over a couple of days. Sometimes it stays in my head, and then it starts taking a shape of what it should become, how it should be represented, and then I just tap into that element. So I I really create a peaceful environment for me. So I'll have maybe a little meditation music there, maybe burn some incense, create a quiet space, and I pretty much let myself feel. That is so important. This is not an intellectual exercise. It's truly an emotional one. I let myself feel the painting. And once I let myself feel the painting, the guidance to how to represent it on the canvas is almost automatic. And when that happens, it's like the state of flow where I feel very peaceful, at the same time, very focused because there is a message that's being expressed through me onto a canvas. And I will do it for an amount of time and I will be like, okay, I think that's about as much as I can take. And I will pause it when I feel that, okay, that's about as much as I can. And let's use the next time window to continue that. And I could do it over several days like that until the painting is done. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my process. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And I was going to say, guys, just a little reminder, and then I want you to talk about the windows ceremony itself and what you've learned, what you've experienced, how you negotiated your own time for the ghosts to come to you, because otherwise they were coming to you at all hours of the night and every night for many months, actually, which was impacting your health and all of the things. And so he created boundaries, which is good for all of us in business. I coach a lot on this if you've been following me for a while. But take us through it, if you don't mind, however much you want to share about your Ghost Whisper ceremony and what type of ghosts are coming to you, what are you doing in the ceremony, and how are you passing them into the light?
Yes. So the window ceremony is something that I do every Saturday morning for about an hour, and I have a whole week to get ready for it. So during the week, I'll give myself a few moments during the day, like those windows of communication that I talked about, where I would ask whichever entity ghosts who find themselves lost and need help crossing over, make themselves known to me. And the way they make themselves known to me is, again, through my channeling, this artistic rendering. This is 100 sketches of the ghosts that I've helped. There's about 100 of them now that I've helped. And every single one of them will manifest themselves and let me see what they look like. If you see some examples here, there's 100 sketches like that in this book. And these are the ones that I've helped. So throughout the week, I'll usually have about up to 9 of them. And then during the ceremony, I create a sacred space. So there's a whole ritual that I've been trained to do by people who really understand how to do that. And I go through that ceremony where I help them. I give them reassurance that they're moving into a safe space, that they're actually only joining back to the divine. That's where they're going. And they're going to find a lot of peace, a lot of love on the other side. And I do that for about an hour with each one of them. And at the end, I thank the ghosts for their presence, for their trusting me. I give blessing to their families for those they've left behind. And I give blessing to the divine help that allows me now to do this work. And for people who want to know more about ghost whispering, I also recommend this book, The Medium Next Door. It's like a playbook that you could also read if you ever were more interested in that. It's by an author. Her name is Maureen Hancock. She's pretty famous in the ghost whispering community. The Medium Next Door is another way that you could get some guidance on how to do that. That's it.
Awesome. I wanted to acknowledge Minneapolis St. Paul has joined us. So she says hello and super excited. This is from your sister. She said sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see people's faces and I don't know who they are. And of course, Elizabeth sharing that just to you. She wants to talk to you sometime, which I want to acknowledge for those of you that would like to connect. I just put his LinkedIn profile in the comments. I'll also put that in the show notes. But you can simply connect with him on LinkedIn. And I'll put his LinkedIn profile also on the screen. And I've already shared some examples of his art. You can go there. That's simply the Ghost Whisperer painter.now site link that I put in the show notes and put on the screen. But if you're interested in purchasing some art, if you're interested in talking to him, of course, connect with him on LinkedIn. And is there anything else that you want to share? People that you want to serve, people that you want to help, or anything about your commissioned paintings, especially for those who have lost loved ones. I know we're just at the beginning, guys. So D is still newer at this, but you would never know it because he's grown so quickly in a very short period of time. So anything that you care to share about selling your prints of your artwork or anything else?
Yeah, so you can get the artwork in prints, the existing one. You ask me which one, you can communicate with me through the links that Lois has given you. I'll give you the quotes for the prints. It all depends on the sizes and everything and the material that you use. So there are lots of options for that. If you want commission work, like you want a portrait of a loved one who has passed away, I can also do that. You tell me which size portrait you want, and I can also quote you for a portrait of a loved one who's passed. I will do that. As far as ghost busting or doing ghost whispering, I'm still figuring those details. The logistics is not simple because we still have a pandemic going on. So that one is trickier. But if you have any issues that you want to talk about, I can have conversations about that. Sorry about that.
Wow, you're getting a call already.
Yeah, I know. That's about, yeah.
Well, anything else? Any other advice you want to give?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Did you have any advice for anyone?
Yes. I would really say anybody who's going through anything of that nature, where you have something inside you that has been ignored, but is there, you know, deep in your heart that there is something. Don't think that you're crazy. Do not think that you are crazy. Seek advice from people that may help you, find your way through that, and always be true to yourself. That is really the big message here. Be true to yourself. Every single one of us is a wonderful, wonderful being. We have so much to offer ourselves and the world if we just allow that space to exist within us and we let it express itself. So that's my advice and our recommendation. Be true to yourself, deep in your heart.
I love it. Yeah, going within was the best thing that we could have ever done individually to not only save our marriage, but to create a thriving marriage and family life. And one more thing that I'll share, we didn't get to talk much about this. I'll probably have Didier back in something else that he and I are also very passionate about. And some of you might be like, what are you talking about, Lois? But if this resonates with you, please reach out to us. We've been fortunate to connect with some amazing spiritual mentors who have been helping us guide us more into that love and light that the world is opening itself up to, called the 5D. 4D, 5D ascension. Didier was talking about the 3D dimensional bodies that we have as humans. And there's so much going on behind the scenes right now. You may have been feeling it. You may, with the shooting in Texas, there's still a lot of dark energy, but a lot of that is because it's resisting this massive, massive amount of amazing, beautiful light and love that we are all able to share, right? When you shine your light, you give permission for others to do the same. Again, in summary, as we close this podcast out. So Dee and I have both been transformed by studying this work. That's this manifestation of this 5D ascension. So if any of that resonates with you and you want to have a Zoom with me and Didier and talk about the struggles you've been going through, what maybe your symptoms of your higher purpose and higher self are coming out and you don't know what to do with them. And we want to encourage people to learn from our experience. I was working and drinking over mine, and Didier had his own numbing mechanisms as well. We were just pushing it down. But there's these whispers whispers of things that are happening inside of you, don't push them down. We really want to encourage you to reach out to us as we close out here. And if you saw value in today's show, please hit the share button with your community. And I'm going to close with the same question I ask all of my guests, Didier. So even though you're a husband and we've gone over an hour, I'm not going to not close with this. When you hear the phrase healthy and wealthy and wise, what does it mean for you?
To me, it's a path to ascension. Be healthy, like find a space of integrity with your body, be balanced, respect your body. Wealthy for me is the abundance, accepting this abundant reality. We are all of us, nobody has to be denied abundance, and the wisdom really is found within. Within yourself, you will find all the wisdom that you need. If you only, give yourself the credits that you deserve, you will find that wisdom. That's how I see it. That's it, the path to ascension.
Awesome. Well, thank you, my love. I so appreciate you and love you. Grateful for your light being shared now with the world. I jokingly, lovingly say he's coming out of the closet to share with you his truth. And so I just want to remind you guys again, if you want to be inside of the Facebook community, Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, please go to Facebook. Otherwise, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And of course, share this message with other people that may be struggling right now, that really are in a dark place or are just really curious about what the heck is going on in the world, because the world is changing rapidly behind the scenes. And it's that ripple effect, right? One person drop in the ocean, as the ocean is filled with all these drops, and we are all part of this journey together. And we want to really encourage you to reach out if you guys have any questions. So until next time, guys, this was my only guest for the week. I don't have another guest until June 10th, but it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be my friend Tara Samadi, who's the host of The Cosmic Life. She's a divine channeler, a Hollywood artist, and she's got a lot of gifts and skills as a musician. So I'm excited to be bringing her and sharing her truth, her story. So until next time, guys, here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Well, all right. Thank you for attending another amazing Healthy and Wealthy and Wise show. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, download, leave a review or a rating. And also, if you felt like you could benefit from some help, maybe some magnetic mind support, maybe some lead generation and sales strategy, I would love to gift you a free month of my membership, or go to bookacallwithlois.com. That's right, www.bookacallwithlois.com. And if you haven't had a one-time free strategy session with me, that's my gift to you today for attending all the way to the end. Here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom.